This weekend on the original Rochester Press Box.
I'm Curt Smith, and I'll tell you why. If you get the chance to grab a baseball ticket to see the Pittsburgh Pirates in Pittsburgh, PA, do so now.
And I'm John DiTullio. I'll tell you what I love most about baseball this season.
And I'm Mike Catalana, and I'll tell you about a commissioner who's lying to you, and it's not Roger Goodell.
I'm Bill Pucko. The grand old game as we reach the second half. Join us this weekend on the original Rochester Press Box. And welcome into the original Rochester Press Box. I'm Bill Pucko, joined as always by John DiTullio.
Billy, I can't tell you how excited every week. I love being here.
Mike Catalana co-hosting. Thank you, Michael.
Good to be back.
And we welcome back Curt Smith.
Yes.
Look, we've left the first half of the baseball season behind us now. It's been a fascinating first half.
Right.
Your overview of what we've seen.
It has been fascinating, and it's amazing the cause and effect. Bud Selig leaves, and baseball has a marvelous resurrection. I'm sure it's not just cause and effect. But if you look at all 6 divisions, most of them are very close. The pace of the game is what I find encouraging, although God knows much still remains. The length of an average game last year was 3 hours and 2 minutes. This year, 9 minutes has been taken off, which strikes me as something rather Lilliputian. There's a great deal still to be done. But at least this commissioner actually acknowledges that in the real world in which he lives, and in which most of us live as well, baseball cannot exist if it has to be dragged, kicking, and screaming into appeasing and pacifying and appealing to the youth of today. This commissioner wants to do that, and so far has. And I think these first couple steps are just that, baby steps, and what we're going to see next year, at least I hope so, are some greater steps as well.
I think what I enjoy about the game right now is I think they're embracing that it is a regional game in strength, and then that will, in effect, have a ripple effect on a national scale. The game is strong, especially in the home markets. You look at the numbers, the TV numbers, the revenue, the attendance in those home markets. It's a different game than it was 20, 30 years ago, where it was a national game. Yep. You didn't have as many games. They have to focus on making the people in Houston love the Astros, making the people I can't say Philly love the Phillies because nobody loves that team. It's not the national game that it was before. You know, people making the point that the Women's World Cup game did better than the World Series. That doesn't surprise me at the moment. But as long as the game is strong and has strong moments nationally, I think it'll grow, and I think it'll be better.
What we saw Tuesday night is the future of the game. And the future of the game looks great. Looks bright with all the young players in baseball. And the superstars like Mike Trout and Bryce Harper, but it goes much deeper than that. I just can't recall the last time we saw so many good young players on the same field at the same time. And I think what Tuesday night showed me is that baseball is in good hands with the new commissioner, with the TV money, the little small steps. And as Mike hit it right on the spot, it's become a regional sport.
You know what?
The cable money is proving it's become a regional sport. It's never going to reach the numbers it did way back when, but I think now it's plotting a new course towards success.
I think so, and also when you watch Home Run Derby, which in many ways is more appealing than the All-Star Game itself, but you had this approachability within Home Run Derby and the players that were 22, 23 years of age. It was obviously they were enjoying it. They were having fun. They were approachable, not simply within the fraternity players, but with fans themselves. And you don't see this with a lot of sports. You do see it with baseball, and I think you're going to see this increasing emphasis on player and fan with greater frequency even than now in years to come.
To touch on Mike's point, Cincinnati, I mean, they were totally into the Home Run Derby. That, to me, reminded me of an October game being played in July at the Great American Ballpark. It was fantastic.
And what's impressive, too, about these young players, they are real athletes.
Oh.
I mean, these guys, you know, it's not I mean, we've had great baseball players in the
Yep.
past that maybe people looked at and even sometimes ridiculed. Said, look at these guys, this guy, whoever it happens to be. There's a few guys, Bartolo Colon is still, throwing pitches out there. But, I mean, you look at Trout and Harper and these guys, and they are phenomenal athletes who are playing baseball.
ERAs have the lowest they've been in 23 years. The pitching, to me, what we saw on display Tuesday night, phenomenal.
It's such a
Good
conflict.
young
You got all
arms.
this great young pitching and all these hitters. You would think one or the other is winning. It seems like they're both winning.
Well, averages are slightly down from
Yeah.
what we've seen, but
I
you're
think
right. There's a lot of great hitters
I think
out
the
there.
game does have to be vigilant about that because all things being equal, the average fan would rather see home runs than a shutout. But it's not something that's draconian right now, I think,
Yeah.
and certainly the quality of play and the pace of play is
Yep.
far more brisk, far more alive than it was a year ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, which I think is great cause for rejoicing. And if change begins at the top, I think it does begin at Commissioner's office in New York.
We got some more baseball talk for you. We'll touch on Pete Rose and maybe that 154-game schedule's coming back when the original Rochester Press Box continues. Welcome back to the original Rochester Press Box. Geez, John, when are we going to lose our fascination with Pete Rose? And what do you think of him doing in Cincinnati this week?
Two things we'll lose our fascination once he gets into Cooperstown or when he dies. As long as Pete Rose is alive, he's going to be topic of conversation. And number two, as long as he is not included at Cooperstown, his bat can be there, 4.2, 5.6, the ball off of Eric, that can be there. But Pete Rose technically can't be there. It'll always be a topic of conversation. And to touch on Curt's point, at least Rob Manfred has not completely dismissed the idea of allowing Pete Rose to maybe take his proper place in Cooperstown. A completely an about face from what we saw from the previous administration.
Think he
of Bud
means it?
Selig. I think he does.
I do. I absolutely do. I think the earlier returns on Manfred had been just sacco, just on a scale of 1 to 10, 15. Part of it has been the shock at actually having a real live commissioner, someone who is alive, or at least who doesn't appear to be dead when he appears on television. So in that sense, he did not have a tough act to follow in Bud Selig. In fact, he had no act to follow, let's be honest. But beyond that, he's been very approachable. He has not dismissed ideas, and I think you're going to see this commissioner really become known as the fans commissioner, and their worst certainly sobriquets to have. But I think the second half, if we see the first half and look at teams now, and the teams that are poised to at least have a chance to get in the playoffs, this really could be something.
But back to Rose, we have a whole generation plus now who doesn't care. Like the young guys who work with me, and they see Pete Rose, they just don't care. And if they're paying attention to baseball, I'm almost to my son. Honestly, he looks like he's a pitiful thing.
Right.
I see him come out, and I think people were expecting this explosion of emotion from Cincinnati. Honestly, I watched it. Everything cheered, and it went for a bit. But even there, I think there's just let something happen at some point.
I think it was Johnny Bench who touched on. You can't be in bed with FanDuel.com in fantasy sports where there's gambling, and then then keep a guy out of Cooperstown because he gambled.
It really looks hypocritical.
It looks tremendously hypocritical. So as Mike mentioned, I work with young guys. They could care less that Pete Rose gambled on baseball. They don't even care.
No, I
they feel
agree.
as if the guys who took PEDs are a lot worse.
But they also don't really care about him with the Hall of Fame.
No,
I mean,
that
that's
too.
the part
You're
of it.
right.
It's just like, okay. But your point about he's a bigger deal now because he's not in the Hall of Fame than he ever would have been if he would have gotten in.
Yep.
So you see him and all, but I see him out there and I'm like, okay,
Well-
let him in, don't let him in. I think it's fatigue a little bit.
It is, and I think, since he admitted to having bet on baseball in the last couple months, I think there is no doubt that he will die. Not that we're wishing for him to leave this planet, but he will die before he is admitted into Cooperstown.
That's an element of forgive and forget for me. But Curt,
Yeah.
changing this up to 154. You want to see 154 come back?
What I think is incidental. The players, I think, would like to go down to 154. I think the owners would, if and only if they could somehow jigger the postseason schedule in October to make up for the lost revenue that would come as a result of playing 8 fewer games in the regular schedule. Unless they can do that, there will never be any kind of reduction in games from 162 to 154.
See, I would try to fix that. I would think that there's some way you could work with the scheduling and the travel arrangements.
Yeah, but the only
that
way
would
you're going to
make
do
that
it would be
easier.
to have real live double headers, not day-night double
They won't
headers.
do it.
Double headers, 2 for the price of 1, and I'll vote for George McGovern.
Every
Before,
sport,
in fact, that's
every
going to
sport
happen.
but the NFL should reduce their schedule.
And by the way,
Everyone.
day-night doubleheaders to me is the most shocking thing that ever got through with the players' union. As strong as the players' union is, that to me is a ridiculous work day, and it's strictly for the owners. And of all places, with the power that the
I think the
players'
Red Sox
union
invented
has.
that.
They did invent that, and they used their limited seating capacity as a
Weapon.
a humanitarian. No, they were being humanitarian. This was their way of allowing 72,000 people from New England to go to 2 games instead of 36,000 New Englanders just to go to 1. So how kind it was of the old
Oh,
time
they're so
team.
nice.
And now, of course, that was quite correct. The Red Sox christened it and say bye-bye to the traditional doubleheader. But
You're
that's
welcome.
Not, but that's not coming back.
Yeah.
I think.
Like it or not, when we return. Hi, everyone. I'm Bill Pucko. Classy Wolf Media is proud to be in its 5th year contributing quality local sports programming to the Rochester area on local network television. The Vision High School Sports Beat and Rochester Press Box are making real contributions to the Rochester sports scene and offer unique and affordable sponsorship opportunities. To become part of this vibrant community, contact the Chuck Hinkle Agency at 690-8547 for more information. Welcome back to the original Rochester Press Box. Like it or not, it's sort of like it or not, but this Aaron Cromer thing, which is worse, but hitting the kid or threatening to kill his family?
Oh, the threat, because there's no one says that, especially, and the excuse, again, we don't know all the facts, and as we're taping this, we don't know, but the only thing I've heard back is something about self-defense and in the darkness and all, terrible circumstances. He's supposed to be the adult there. Kid could not have been threatened. He's a big guy. These were not 19, 20-year-old kids, young men.
Sure.
They were younger. I hate every part of it. I think this is where I understand the whole paid administrative leave, the way they need the procedurally. I don't believe the guy is going to be coaching when the Bills come to camp. I don't think he's going to be with the team. I think they almost have to make this move. I don't like any part of it.
Let's assume that is. How much does that hurt the Bills, losing your offensive line coach just a few weeks before training camp?
I guess it's a line coach. They have got Greg Roman as coach. They have an assistant line. I mean, in this day and age now, they have 4 guys coaching each position. They had the hands of the head coach on the offensive line last year. Too much coaching. It was a disaster with Marone there last year. Does it hurt? He's never coached a game with the Bills. I say wave goodbye. They should do it sooner rather than later.
Tough PR week for the Pagulas
Yeah.
with the Ryan O'Reilly and then with Cromer. Not to mention the Duke Williams funny scandal. And then you got to deal with Incognito. You're dealing with Carlos Williams, Ronald Darby. Been a PR hit for the Pagulas so far.
Johnny, like it or not, Caitlyn Jenner is getting the Arthur Ashe Courage Award at the ESPYs.
I don't have a problem with it. I know some people do. I believe it was moved from ESPN to ABC, Mike's network, because I believe of Caitlyn Jenner, right? Isn't that why they moved it to ABC? I think there is so much hype for her speech coming up on Wednesday night that I think that's the reason they moved it. I don't got a problem with it.
It's a funny dynamic, because I thought we were all willing to kind of roll with this thing until Bob Costas says, wait a minute, this looks like a publicity ploy.
Probably.
And everyone rethought it and said, you know what?
It is.
He's right.
ESPN, Entertainment, Sports Network, absolutely.
I think
it's for the entertainment value. They exploited Caitlyn Jenner, and to her credit, she's taking them up on it.
Right. Well, Bob doesn't need anyone to defend him, least of all me. But I think he would say, and indeed already has, that this honor is nowhere near the exalted level of Arthur Ashe, and indeed demeans the award as well as it does the person for whom the award is named.
Well, Michael Sam won it a year ago, correct? And now Caitlyn Jenner. So they're kind of not necessarily what Arthur Ashe went through
I know, you don't want to make this all
when he
about a
went back in
social
early his
issue.
career and then
Well,
how he eventually passed away.
But what ends up
become
happening,
a social issue.
We have such a tableau of gutter culture. Do we really need another aspect to throw on that bottom-dwelling slugs?
Here's what it ends up being: is you can. I think the criticism should he or she, in this case she, be winning the Courage Award, as opposed to when you say if you don't agree with that, it becomes a criticism of what she has attempted to do or is doing now. And I think that's the biggest thing. There is zero doubt in my mind ESPN will take and exploit anything. And I'll even go one step farther. I think they exploit the Jimmy Valvano speech, which I love.
Yes.
They've turned it into a remix video, and it's cheapened it, I think. They do a lot of that. They will take anything and grind it and use it for their own game.
But the greatest athlete 40 years ago is now a female. To me, that's interesting. Courageous, that's up to everybody else to decide.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Unfinished business when we return. Welcome back to the original Rochester Press Box, Unfinished Business. Johnny.
I never thought I'd say this, but baseball now has become the NFL. It has parity. That is correct. Although the evil empire, like the New York Yankees and the LA Dodgers, are in first place, teams like Kansas City, teams like Pittsburgh, doormats for many, many years after being the model franchises back in the 70s, are now sitting atop their division. In fact, the Pirates, I can say, are the second best team in baseball, only behind the St. Louis Cardinals. What I mean by parity, look at how many teams have a legitimate shot to be playing in October. Now, Bud Selig maybe did one thing right. They added the extra wild card. The 2 wild cards in both leagues, although I wasn't a fan at the beginning, I am a fan now. Baseball, as far as I'm concerned, I'm 50 years old, has maybe never been better. And what I mean by that, so many different teams have a shot to be playing in October. The Giants, Cardinals, we know those teams are good. We know the Dodgers are good. The Nationals, we know they're good. The Mets in their pitching, to me, is phenomenal. You look at other teams that could make a push, the Chicago Cubs and the good young players that Theo Epstein has drafted and has put together. The Cubs are legit. You go to the American League, the Twins. I can make a case for almost maybe about 3 teams in each league do not have a legitimate shot to be playing in October. That's parity.
Kurt, what do you got?
Well, John was talking about how good he thinks baseball may be in the second half of this year. I would agree, but there are good for some teams, and there's great for perhaps another. And I think that great label may apply to the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Buccos have not been part of the October landscape too often in the last 30 to 40 years. Begg the last couple years as exception, when the Pirates became part of the wild card conversation. But they have not won a division in many, many moons, and have not been in the World Series in many more still. But the Pirates have several things going for them. How about Andrew McCutchen, for one? He's the finest center fielder in baseball. He may yet win another Most Valuable Player award this year in baseball. He can do everything that you would want in a five-tool player. He's got a terrific personnel armada around him. Josh Harrison, a great pitching staff, a great manager in Clint Hurdle. And oh yes, he has, without doubt, and Pucko fans have, without doubt, the greatest ballpark in baseball. Not Fenway Park, and not Wrigley Field. I'm talking about the ballparks that were built within the last 25 to 30 years. PNC Ballpark is a jewel. It's 5 hours from here. It's a joy to visit, a joy to be a part of, and it would be a wonderful forum for the World Series. The Pirates have the best one-loss record at home of any ballpark in the Bigs. It's understandable why, but it's even more understandable why the Pirates are drawing so well at home this year. It's a great park to go to simply visually, topographically, looking at the river, the Allegheny flowing by. So if you can do so, grab a ticket this year. You won't be sad that you do.
Yeah, I had a seat up in the left field up where you could see the convergence of the river and the bridge and
You know what,
the
highest seat in Pittsburgh, highest row is 88 feet from the field. That is the lowest, in other words, the most intimate of any ballpark in the Bigs. Even more intimate than Fenway Park.
You're right, it's a great place.
Just great.
Adam Silver this week said NBA teams, a percentage of them are losing money. And if you believe that, you also believe the dog you had as a young kid is living on a farm with a family somewhere upstate. It's not true. He is speaking that way because, like all commissioners, he works for the owners. The NBA is flush with money, plenty of money. The NBA is doing great. We talked about baseball's resurgence. The NBA is going gangbusters, behind the NFL right now, but doing very well. What I'm telling you about right now is this is setting up the next labor dispute we're going to have in pro sports. It'll be the NBA against the players. You see what they're doing right now during this free agency period. They're throwing money around to guys who don't deserve it. Owners can't help themselves. And then when they spend and they spend and they spend and they get in all this other revenue and the salary cap goes up, they're going to need somebody to curb it. And that's going to end up being the players at some point. So this is the first strike in all of this. This is when the commissioner says, we're doing terribly. These guys are losing money. Something has to change. Franchises are bought for $130 million that are worth $600-700 million now. There's different ways to show the books. The NBA has their own. Don't believe it when he says it. The NBA is doing just fine.
It's like when we take labor peace for granted these days. It's been so long since we've had this conflict. I fear the next one.
It'll come.
That's our program. Johnny, thank you very much.
Billy, great show today.
Mike, great as always.
Thank you.
Pleasure, Curt, as always.
Anytime.
Thank you, sir.
You bet. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on the original Rochester Press Box.